Hi, true crime friends. Welcome to Mountain Standard True Crime. I'm Michelle Carlson. We're changing things up a little bit on the channel, trying to do more video narration and some enhanced video editing. So hopefully you will like the changes. We're excited about them. This episode that I'm going to share with you today hits close to home. Both of the assailants involved in this case are from the same valley that I grew up in, the beautiful Cache Valley, Utah, which is home to Utah State in the city of Logan. Go Aggies. I was born and raised in Logan. I graduated from Logan High, as did my cute grandmother, who passed away last September. She was a Logan High graduate, and she just passed away at the age of 91. So we have that in common. Then I went on to receive a bachelor's degree in psychology from Utah State University. So I have always been really interested in human behavior, especially when it came to forensic psychology. I've been obsessed with true crime since I read Helter Skelter about the Charles Manson murders when I was 18. I didn't end up going down the psychology or forensics route for a career, but it's always been a passion of mine, and now I have Mountain Standard True Crime to channel that energy and passion into. So I hope you enjoy it. Just a couple of housekeeping items. The content in this episode can be extremely disturbing to some, and it can be triggering, so be aware of that. It is absolutely not appropriate for children. All of the information that we share on this channel comes from publicly available sources or official requests, and any opinions that are shared on this channel are simply that. They're just opinions. They are not intended to be interpreted as facts. So with that being said, here we go. James Butler, or Jimbo as he was known to family and friends, proudly served in the United States Navy for 21 years as an air traffic controller aboard the USS Enterprise, an aircraft carrier that was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia Naval Station, which is the largest naval installation in the world and is home of the U.S. Atlantic Fleet. Throughout his career, he had been decorated with 10 Medals of Honor. Upon retirement in 2010, he returned to his hometown, Rumney, New Hampshire, and cared for his mother while she battled cancer. The mother and son duo used to go out on the town and play darts, which is how he met Michelle, whom he dated for 5 years before they were married in 2015. The two had both been married prior and together had 5 adult children. From those marriages, Michelle had 3 sons, while James had 1 son and 1 daughter. The Butlers both dreamed of traveling the country and made this dream a reality in 2018 when they and their 3 cats, Chloe, Gizmo, and Moana, hit the road in their truck and travel trailer. They were always loving and up for a good adventure. The pair made sure to have contact with their family by FaceTime every day so that they could check in and make sure that everyone knew that they were safe and where they were. On October 13th, 2019, a park ranger pulled over a gray Chevy truck with Utah license plates on the North Beach at Padre Island National Seashore because the driver, Adam Curtis Williams, was not wearing a seatbelt. Unfortunately, per protocol on the island, a seatbelt violation does not call for them to run the driver's license or the driver's license plates, which is very unfortunate because had that happened, they would have learned that the driver had warrants out for his arrest in Utah and he was currently on the run. He was let go without a warning. On October 15th, Michelle Butler posted on Facebook that they had arrived at the beautiful sandy-beached Padre Island, a barrier island in Texas with a beach that spans over 100 miles long. It's a very popular destination for travelers from around the world because you can still park your RV on the beach and you can light fires on the beach. There are also many, many, many camp spots. The Butlers' next planned stop was to be New Orleans, and then they were going to go on to Fort Lauderdale and manage a Christmas tree farm. The couple kind of lived as nomads. They would pick up jobs, local jobs where they were at in different places to finance their traveling lifestyle. The Butler spoke with Michelle's son on the phone October 15th, and she sent a text message to a friend at 1:13 p.m. Eastern Time on October 16th. On October 19th, the gray Chevy truck with Utah plates was towed by Techstar Wrecker Service. Meanwhile, James and Michelle Butler's adult children were trying to reach them via FaceTime calls that were going unanswered. They were becoming concerned about their parents, and when it had been determined that it had been a week since anyone in their inner circle had talked to James or Michelle, they filed missing persons reports for both of them with the Kleberg County Sheriff's Office in Texas on October 23rd, and the media was alerted. A reward for the safe return of the couple's 3 beloved cats was also posted. As part of the investigation into their disappearance, law enforcement was able to determine that the Butlers' phones had not left the Bull area of Padre Island where they had been camping. It was called the Bull because after years of waves washing in and out, it had kind of created a bowl-like atmosphere, and there were also sand dunes in the area. On October 27th, while searching for the missing couple, investigators found a women's bra in the sand not far from where it was believed that the Butlers had been camping. Later that day, they discovered Michelle Butler's lifeless body, followed by her husband James's nearby the following day on October 28th. They had been buried in shallow graves. Also on the 28th, investigators learned that on the 21st, exactly 1 week prior, the Butlers' 2018 silver Chevy pickup truck towing their Cedar Creek trailer was caught on camera at the Eagle Pass, Texas border toll booth, crossing into Piedras Negras, Mexico, 700 miles from Padre Island. The rig was being driven by an unknown man with a female passenger. Kleberg County Sheriff's Office issued a media release and sent a photo of the driver of the Butler's truck from the video to the Associated Press, hoping it would make it to the media in Mexico, which fortunately it did. On November 1st, the Butlers' bodies were positively identified. On November 4th, the ranger who had pulled the man over in the gray truck with Utah plates positively identified him as the same man in the border crossing video driving the Butler's truck. And on November 4th, Corpus Christi police informed investigators that an abandoned Chevrolet truck with the same Utah plate was impounded at the Weber Bingo parking lot in Corpus Christi after several calls from the owner saying that it had been abandoned for several days. It was the same truck seen in the traffic stop video by the park ranger. Adam Curtis Williams was identified as the driver of the truck as well as the Butler's truck and was now a wanted man in their disappearance. He was listed as being 6 foot 1 inches and 220 pounds with blonde hair and hazel eyes. The list of his identifying tattoos I think is interesting, and there are a couple that are funny, so I'm going to share those. A pit bull, skulls and faces on the abdomen, skulls on the left ankle, demons on the right ankle, a pit bull, lady skulls, flames, and a chain link alien on the left arm, a money bag, quote, don't tell, and quote, Williams on the back, koi fish on the left breast, a demon, a girl, and skulls on the right leg, Elmer Fudd on the left buttocks, Bugs Bunny, and quote, get out of there, you rascally rabbit, end quote, gross, on the right buttocks, pot leaves on the left calf, brass knuckles on the neck, a skull, and quote, militia, M-U-L-I-S-H-A, end quote, on the head, and bad luck on the right hand. Williams tried to sell the Butler's trailer to an RV park owner in Jalisco State, Mexico, where the couple were staying in the stolen trailer. The RV park owner recognized the suspect from the news and reported it to local authorities. Thank goodness. Sheriff Kirkpatrick sent an urgent message to his colleagues in the United States Marshal Service who were camped in nearby Guadalajara. He said, quote, I need a favor. I know where this individual is, and I need him captured. I don't care how you do it. I just want him back in custody, end quote. This led to a raid on the RV park by U.S. Marshals on the 6th of November. 33-year-old Adam Curtis Williams and his girlfriend/new wife, 32-year-old Amanda Louise Nover, both from the Logan, Utah area, were taken into custody without incident. Sadly, they discovered Nover's 3-year-old daughter from her previous marriage had been traveling with them. Sheriff Kirkpatrick received a photo message after the raid showing Adam Williams handcuffed on the floor of the Butler's trailer. Williams was separated from Nover and her young daughter and was flown to Houston and then driven to Kleberg County Jail, where he was received under heavy guard and was booked in at 10 p.m. that night on suspicion of felony theft and assault on a peace officer. Nover and her daughter were taken into custody and then flown to Houston the following day. Nover was also booked into the Kleberg County Jail on charges of felony theft after she arrived in a white van wearing a hot pink inmate uniform under a bulletproof vest with her wrists and ankles in shackles. She was also heavily guarded. The two suspects had separate hearings that day where they appeared in shackles and bulletproof vests, with Williams wearing a bright orange inmate uniform under his bulletproof vest. Each was given $1 million bond, and they were appointed counsel by the court because they didn't have money to hire their own attorneys. Novaire was cooperative and forthcoming during her interrogation by Texas Ranger Groves. Williams was cooperative until he found out he was under investigation for capital murder. He then asked for an attorney, and questioning had to be stopped. Adam Curtis Williams's extensive criminal history began in 2005 when he was booked into the Weber County Jail in Utah at the young age of 19. I have not been able to find out what he was charged with. 5 years later, in 2010, at just 24 years old, he was arrested in his Wellsville, Utah home after a 3-month investigation led to a warrant for his arrest and resulted in a drug bust. According to the court documents at the time of this arrest, Williams was in possession of a Phoenix Arms .22 caliber handgun, a 9mm Springfield XD handgun, and an AK-47. He was also found with 2 pounds of marijuana, more than $3,200 in cash, more than 1,000 hydrocodone pills, and drug paraphernalia. Williams faced 4 counts of possession to distribute, 3 counts of firearm possession by a restricted person, and 2 counts of possession of a stolen firearm. He was on probation at the time. If he was already on probation and already restricted from possessing a firearm, he had to have committed a pretty serious crime or crimes before this drug bust went down. Williams pleaded guilty to counts 2 and 3 of his charges, which included possession of a firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking offense. He said he possessed the firearms for his protection while selling drugs, according to court documents, and the firearms had been moved previously across state lines, which I know from serving my time on a federal grand jury in Salt Lake City, which was absolutely fascinating. That makes the firearms charges federal. Anytime a firearm crosses state lines and then is used in furtherance of a crime, it's a federal crime. He was sentenced to 100 months in federal prison, followed by 60 months of supervised release. On May 26, 2015, while serving out his sentence at Fairton Federal Corrections Institute in New Jersey, which I also spent time living in New Jersey in Princeton as a nanny from 1991 to 1992, he was found in possession of a shank. He pled guilty to the charge and was given a 6-month sentence as a result of a plea deal. He was released from that federal prison on December 16, 2018, and now was going to have 60 months of supervision. On May 16, 2019, exactly 5 months after he was released, the United States District Court for the District of Utah petitioned for a summons for Williams to appear before the court because his probation officer alleged that he had violated his parole on or around May 13, 2019 by possessing heroin and drug paraphernalia. He was already facing charges, prepare yourself for this, by the Cache County District Attorney's Office for object rape, forcible sodomy, and forcible sexual abuse in connection with an April 18, 2019 incident. According to a July 2019 court document, his previous special conditions were reimposed and he could not possess alcohol or frequent any businesses with alcohol. Really? That's all he got for those violent charges? Was a slap on the wrist? And then, are you ready for this? In an August 4th, 2019 case, he faced 2 charges of aggravated assault, assault by a prisoner, interference with an arresting officer, intoxication, and unlawful purchase by an interdicted means prohibited person. I had to look up interdicted. In that case, Williams was arrested in a domestic violence-related incident and had to be stunned by a taser by police, according to Cache County Police affidavit. Why the hell was he not locked up after all of that? The fact that he was out free, even if he was on probation, after all of that, just aggravates me. Like, it really makes me upset. He's a violent criminal who's running around assaulting people, and he's in the community. And Cache Valley is a fairly safe community. The crime rate there is pretty low. I should find out what exactly it is, but this doesn't happen very often, and No one wants people like this running around in their community. Now I'm going to fill you in on the Adam Williams-Amanda Noverre relationship. She had also been arrested and booked into the Cache County Jail in Logan, Utah at some point. I've not been able to find out when or why, but there is a booking photo that I was able to find on the internet. During her initial interrogation with Texas Ranger Groves, after being extradited back to Texas from Mexico, Noverre reported the following: that she met Williams on Facebook and then in person in her trailer home in Smithfield, Utah around the end of February 2019, when she was still married to her ex-husband. She had some friends over at her trailer house at the time with her, and so she felt safe having him come over to meet her for the first time. After dating for a while, she ended up selling her trailer and moving in with Williams at his request after he agreed to make bedroom space for her young daughter, for whom she had always cared for as a stay-at-home mom, and she really wanted to continue to care for her as a stay-at-home mom. Amanda reported being a domestic violence victim at the hands of Williams. She said that he would get blackout drunk and turn into a different violent person. I do believe this based on her demeanor during the interrogation video that I watched. She definitely appears to have suffered some extreme trauma. I actually really kind of felt bad for her after watching that. She's a small woman. He's a big man. And I have to wonder if the violent sexual assault charges against him in Cache Valley were for sexually assaulting her. No matter who it is, it's horrible. But if he did that to her and she was still with him, I can't even. And it breaks my heart for her 3-year-old daughter, who had probably been witness to some of these violent attacks on her mother at the hands of Williams. You can't hide much in the small space and thin walls of a trailer home. Noverre said the pair went on the road to avoid him being arrested for the looming charges against him in Cache County, Utah. 2 days after they were married at home on October 29th, 2019. Officers had shown up to arrest him on warrants sometime after they were civilly married, but he had left home to take the person who officiated the wedding home. When he was returning, he saw the law enforcement officers at his home and turned around and drove away, so they were not able to capture him. Prior to going on the lam, Williams and Noverre traded in Amanda's full-size van for a pickup truck and a 1974 Prowler trailer. They drove the truck up to Spokane, Washington, to the home of Williams's uncle, where they had resided for a short time when Williams was building a little apartment for them in the uncle's garage. And the uncle asked them to leave because there was an argument that ensued. It's unclear to me if it was between Williams and his uncle or Williams and Noverre, but the uncle asked them to leave because he said he was afraid of Williams's temper. So the couple made a plan to drive down to Texas, and they were hoping that Williams could get a job on an oil rig working under the table. They decided on Padre Island, Texas, because Noverre had been doing some Googling, and she found that there is a beach on Padre Island where you can camp for 2 weeks for free, and that included water hookups and waste disposal as well. So they did that. And at the end of their 2 weeks, they were informed by park rangers that they needed to vacate. But there was a problem. Their truck was dying. It would start, it would turn over, but it wouldn't stay going for very long. They couldn't drive very far. Amanda went for a walk after they discovered this and asked a couple she came across that were in a vehicle to take her to the closest women's shelter, which was about a 30-minute drive. And very unfortunately, they said they didn't have time to drive her there because they needed to get back to work. It is so sad. She had her daughter with her too. I would like to think that if I came across that situation, I would take her to the women's shelter and risk getting in trouble at work, or take her to work and say, I need to get her to the women's shelter. So sad. She finally got the courage up to get away from him and couldn't do it, didn't have the means to do it. I really have to imagine how much differently things could have been, especially for her, if she'd been able to get away from him. She said that couple gave her $20 and she took her daughter to get something to eat with it. As they were unable to drive very far with their failing truck engine, they had been loitering in a nearby laundromat trying to figure out what they were going to do. And then after a while, Williams told her that he had found a new truck and trailer and not to worry about how he obtained them. That night, she drove him down to a nice truck and trailer on the beach that were not hooked up together at the time. She watched as Williams backed the truck up and hooked it up to the trailer. She said she thought he was stealing them at the time. They abandoned their dying truck and old trailer and took off with the Butlers' nice truck and trailer. After some prying by Texas Ranger Groves, Noverre said that Williams eventually told her that he did what he had to do to get the new rig. The Butlers had been murdered with gunshots to the head. Noverre had purchased a 9mm gun and ammunition at a gun show after they had arrived in Texas. Even with out-of-state driver's license, she was illegally sold the gun. Williams was not able to purchase the gun because, as we talked about before, due to his prior felony convictions, he was restricted from owning and possessing firearms. According to Noverre, Williams wanted the gun because he said if he was apprehended, it would be a shootout because he was not going back to prison. She eventually admitted that she did see him dragging the bodies of the Butlers to their shallow graves in the sand. Where was this poor toddler, daughter of hers, when this was going on? 3 years old? I have 2.5-year-old twin grandchildren, and they are the sweetest, most innocent little humans. And I just can't imagine what they were seeing and hearing, and just the stress and the awfulness. It breaks my heart. I really hope that she's in a safe environment that will give her the best possible opportunity to thrive in her life. On January 22nd, 2020, Williams and Noverre were both indicted on a charge of tampering with evidence for burying the bodies of James and Michelle Butler. And then on November 5th, 2020, they were both indicted on capital murder charges in connection with the deaths. In November of 2021, Adam Williams avoided the death penalty that prosecutors had originally planned to seek by taking a plea deal. He pled guilty to capital murder, tampering with evidence, use of a firearm by a felon, and theft. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Thank goodness he's off the streets. The Butler family joined his sentencing through Zoom, and prosecutors read a statement that read in part. It was by Deborah Van Loon, James Butler's sister, and she said that their lives were forever changed, and that, quote, "They have destroyed so much more than they will ever know," end quote. Cache County, Utah attorneys dropped their charges against Williams because he'd already been sentenced to life, so there was no reason to extradite him back to Utah and have him go through another court process. But again, had he been locked up in Cache County for the crimes he was accused of, this tragedy would have never happened to the Butlers. And if I were their family, I would be irate. I would really be irate. It's kind of a maddening situation that should never have happened. In February 22, as part of her plea deal, Amanda Noverre pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, unlawful possession of a firearm, and theft. By accepting the plea deal, she agreed to waive her right to appeal the sentence and the completion of DNA and ballistic testing from evidence that was found at the crime scene. She was sentenced to 20 years for the murders and 10 years each for the other charges, all running concurrently, for a total of 20 years to be served in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. There were no victim impact statements read aloud at her sentence. Vigils were held in Rumney, New Hampshire, and on Padre Island after news of the Butler's murders were made public. A celebration of life was held to honor James and Michelle Butler on January 11, 2020 in New Hampshire. Beautiful memorials where, if you're watching the video, you can see how beautiful they were erected on Padre Island Beach in honor of James and Michelle, and they were graciously maintained by local residents until, unfortunately, severe weather washed them away. James's mother, whom he had moved back to New Hampshire to care for during her cancer battle, now faced the unimaginable pain of outliving her son. My maternal grandmother buried 3 of her 5 adult children before she passed away last year. I know exactly how much of a toll it takes on a mother to outlive her child. It's just not supposed to happen. It upsets the entire life cycle and just is kind of a form of torture. It's just not supposed to, life's not supposed to play out like that. We're supposed to bury our parents. They're not supposed to bury us. My heart goes out to all of the Butler's family and cherished friends who all said that James and Michelle were the nicest people that you would ever meet and that they were always there and supportive of their loved ones. This is such a tragic loss of 2 people who were minding their own business and just out enjoying their best lives. If you haven't yet, please give this episode a thumbs up. and subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Spotify. Both are free. Until next time, please be aware of your surroundings, stay safe, and take care of yourselves.